Well, welcome back to Celebrate Good Lives. It is cool to be back with you. My name is Bradley Shaw. I'm here with my comrade and good friend Dean Weber. Welcome back to the studio.
Welcome back. It is cool indeed today.
All right, what's our news story of the week? Sponsored by Gateway Funeral Services.
Thank you, Gateway Funeral Services, for all your support. It's come to light. It's kind of hit a bit of, I don't know if it's a viral C or not on the social web, but it looks like a funeral director fella in Townsville, Australia, has a patent and designed his own aquamating machine.
And this is quite timely, given the fact of where you were a couple of weeks ago and the fact that the funeral home you were working in was basically prefacing a new facility for the arrival of an aquamator at some point in their journey. So interesting that this fella in Townsville's created this machine, and it seems, without looking into it too much, I've read one news article about it, but it appears that it's going to be cheaper than, we're only prefacing
speculating.
We're speculating it's going to be cheaper based on the fact that the orders for them.
Yeah. The article announced that
they had 140 orders.
140 pre-orders of this thing. So
which
there
to
must
me kind of says, well, it must be cheaper than your alternative ones that are coming in from overseas out of, the States or the UK, because
for a new process to come onto the funeral market never happens, and for something to have pre-orders, it
to be 140,
it must be pretty fail-safe that this is going to work and it's going to be affordable. So
so shout out to Neville from
Good
Townsville. Nev from Townsville. Mate. G'day, mate. He's cottoned onto a ripper. So good on him.
Should work out for him. I reckon.
Maybe. Yeah.
I reckon. Well,
I mean, it's a watch this space. I think, it is the future. There are parts of it that are the future. There are parts of it where they will appeal to a market.
Certainly.
And it's an option.
Yeah.
And if you don't provide options to people, then,
Yep.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think it's important.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the Week in Sport.
Hey!
The Week in Sport, sponsored by a new sponsor.
Yeah.
We don't have one yet.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Celebrate Good Lives. Okay, hit us with the Week in Sport.
Well, I tell you, we had a break from the All Blacks this week. They're back up next week.
Thank goodness we didn't need any more heartbreak.
They're back up next week. We had the Warriors in knockout run against the Broncos. And I tell you, we both sort of talked about this morning. I watched up until 24-8 and realized the Broncos were just going to be way too much to handle.
Just running through them, yeah.
Gosh,
they were too fast. They were too fast. They were fast. They were electric. They were just...
They got a lot of pace.
They had pace.
A lot of pace. I can't remember the young fella's name.
Reece Walsh at the back.
He's a good-looking dude, and geez, he was fast.
He was.
And then
he tired us out through the middle. Just tired our big boys out through the middle. Half an hour into the game, they were tired, man.
Yep.
And it was a tough watch. It was a tough watch.
And he was seeing the gaps early and had the pace to hit the gaps, and they were finding him. It was cool. Good
so
watch.
looking forward to the grand final next weekend with the Panthers and the Broncos. I think the Broncos can get up. I think the Panthers are going for 3 in a row, a three-peat.
Whoa, that I didn't know.
I'd love to see the Bronx get up and do it after.
That'd be cool.
2 years ago, they were the Wooden Spooners. So, it'd be cool to see the Bronx. It's a cool story. Coached by an ex-Bronco and Kevin Walters. So, be a cool story. Cool story. Up the Dolphs.
Up the Dolphins.
Up the Dolphins.
Brad's,
Miami Dolphins this morning.
Brad's new favorite team.
Yeah. Up the Dolphs with a hell of a win.
Yeah.
Massive win.
Well, we got the Broncos back. Sorry, Fratsky, but we got your Broncos back.
Yeah. So, cool game this morning. They put a lot of points on.
By the way, I just read that was the most points scored in a game since the Giants scored 73 in 1941.
Wow.
And they could have kicked a field goal at the end.
They could be a chance this year, Dino.
Hey.
The Dolphs. We could be in for a Super Bowl.
Oh, it'd be incredible, wouldn't it?
I'm talking
it'd be a good day. I have to bust out my suit again.
Oh no, please don't.
Yeah.
So that was your weekend in sport. Other than that, I mean, I watched Wales run through Australia this morning. That was pretty.
Yes.
Enjoyed watching that.
Well done, fellas.
Wow, that was cool. Eddie Jones has
In
got
a fun way.
Eddie Jones is looking for a new job.
Yeah.
So and then the All Blacks next Monday morning,
Is
I
it?
think.
Yeah, I'm
Against
not sure what
Italy.
day it is, but
Yeah,
anyway.
so looking forward to that. Hey, we're on the podcast today, and we are talking things to know before you have to deal with the death process.
This was an interesting topic.
Yeah, because we
and
kind
it's-
of
It's just sort of popped into my head here that in the middle of last week, I did a talk, a public engagement with the University of the Third Age here in Whakatane. And some of these things that we're going to discuss were questions that I was asked during that presentation. So
you had a good turnout there.
Did
Yeah,
we had
120 people or something?
120 plus, very well received. Ran me out of all of our resource products, so we've got some more coming their way, and very supportive network of people. They very good listeners and supporters. Appreciated it.
Yeah, so
Thank you, University of the Third
Thank
Age.
you to the University of the Third Age. So we're sort of talking the process, and we want to just touch on a few aspects of the process that really people don't know before you actually have to deal with this process.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk wills, trusts, estates, that sort of stuff. There'll be a little bit in the back end, maybe about the after process, but if I said to you, what is the one thing in your mind, this is your personal opinion of 30 years of being a funeral director, if there's one thing that people don't know before they come in, or they don't have fathom on how something happens, what would it be?
How a death certificate works, where a death certificate comes from,
And what a death certificate is?
what exactly a death
Because
certificate
there's a
is.
difference between a medical cause of death certificate or an HP 4720 in
Yeah.
New Zealand and a death certificate. So a New Zealand death certificate and a medical cause of death certificate are two totally different documents.
Right. So the medical certificate cause of death for everyone is the initial form filled out by their doctor, the GP, the medical attendant, whoever it is that's going to be certifying the death, and provides confirmation of who this is about and their identity, their medical certificate number, and the medical explanation. And this information...
Does it provide a medical explanation?
Sometimes. And that information is then amalgamated, put together with the information that we gather in the first part of our arrangements with folks.
Okay.
And then register.
So what information are we looking to gather from the family?
From the family. So sometimes it can be intimidating when you sit down with folks and you say that we'll just go over the information required for the death certificate. A lot of people think, oh, geez, I hope I know all of this. There's some parts
prefacing
where
that, sometimes people don't even know what the questions are going to be asked here.
Yeah, you should probably know these if you're the one in position of making the funeral arrangements for somebody. But mainly you're looking at the biographical history of the person that's passed. So their full and complete name, maiden name, ages of birth, date of birth, date of death, ages of children's birth dates.
But not names or date of births.
No, just numbers.
And whether they were male or female.
Yep. And parents, their full names.
And occupations.
Occupations, they aren't listed on the death certificate, but they're kept on record if you know them for, statistical and genealogical reasons.
Purposes, yep.
Yeah. So the information for a death certificate, it seems like most people do pretty well with getting through the fill in the blanks for them. It tends to be grandparents or the parents of the person that's passed.
It's funny because I had this conversation with my parents the other day. Right, only last week.
Oh, yeah?
And I said to my mother and father, I said, okay, so...
Did your dad know who your dad was?
Who his dad was?
Did your dad know who your dad is?
I think he's got a pretty good idea, but he can't be sure. So I said, Mum and her mother's name, and then I got to her mother's maiden name, and I was like,
Ah,
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm stuck. And then I got, father, and then my father's parents, and I got to his mother's maiden name, and I was, And their occupations were the one that got me. I
yeah,
had no idea, man.
yeah, yeah.
No idea. So I guess from that perspective, then Mum said to me, this is like 2 or 3 days later. Oh, by the way, I filled out your Recording Your Choices book and it's at home, so you can pick it up when you're ready.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you,
And
Mom.
I was like, okay, well, there's the purposes of the Recording Your Choices form, which we provide free of charge to everybody. Which does allow people to be able to write those things down because they are things you don't always know.
That's right.
Could you do your full grandparents?
Yeah,
Both sides?
Yeah.
Mum and dad?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, man, I got a bit stuck, eh? Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
I
I'm a
could.
bad grandson.
I was fortunate that all of my grandparents lived to be quite old, and so I got to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, that
with
was
them,
where
so-
that was where I missed that
Yeah,
part. So.
Yeah. So
So-
fortunate that way. That was a good experience.
So anyway, going back to the death certificate. So once you've gathered that information, then what happens? You've gathered you've got the medical cause of death certificate from the doctor, and you've got the information from the family. Then what?
How I tend to do it is put it together to where we get a proof copy of what a death certificate is going to look like. Get it approved, get it reread, proofread, and get it approved that these are the documents that are going to get registered. In New Zealand, we have to wait until the disposition happens. So we have to wait for the cremation or the burial to take place. After that time, then you can register that death certificate with births, deaths, and marriages down in Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt.
Lower Hutt. So what I sort of wanted to say is that people need to understand that the death certificate, I'm just going to reiterate what you said.
Yes.
The death certificate cannot be lodged with births, deaths, and marriages until the person has been buried or cremated. Then the death certificate comes via snail mail. Jinx.
Yeah.
Snail mail to the funeral home, which then can take 4, 5, 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
So we always tell the family that you will not get the death certificate for at least 7 to 10 working days after the person has been buried or cremated.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is what's tricky for people, right? Because people get so sort of like they need to get on with the jobs.
Yeah,
And
they're
this is
in the moment.
They're
and
in
they
the
want to keep
moment.
it going.
You've got the
Yep.
time. If you're working, you've got the time off work. You know, you want to start getting onto these jobs. You want to go to the bank and close down bank accounts. You want to go to the lawyer and start getting things sorted. You want to close the power bill. You want to go to WINS. You want to stop the pension. You
Yeah.
want to do everything.
Yep.
You cannot do anything
Until you-
without a death certificate.
Yep.
Not a medical cause of death certificate.
That's right.
A death certificate.
That's right. And, people want them, we often find that people want them for travel purposes,
Yep.
getting out of work to come and attend,
Bereavement leave.
in anything. And you people sort of really look at you like, no, I need a death certificate.
Yeah, no, I
It's
need
like,
it now.
Well, no, I can write you a letter on the letterhead, but I can't even
That's
get
not
you a
gonna get
death
you that far.
certificate. Yeah, I would say, the acquisition and the understanding of the processing of a death certificate, number one thing people misunderstand, don't have a clue or anything.
I think the other thing I was just going to say is that the only time you would get a death certificate before someone's been buried or cremated is if we were doing a repatriation.
Yes, and you can get them expressed.
Yeah.
You can get them well beforehand, but they do require some more hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
But you can.
That is just a passing comment that I thought of. The other parts, I guess the other thing that I sort of find is the most important, or one of the most important parts pre-death, is having a conversation with a funeral director or having a plan about what your loved one wants, or what, if it's you, what you want, and expressing that to the person that is going to be looking after everything.
I think when I was doing the presentation, one of the things I said was, over the course of nearly 30 years since I've been doing this, the amount of times that I've met people for the first time face to face, and they basically wave a white flag and say, "This is our first time. I have no clue what I'm doing." And so you literally go back all the way to square one. But that a lot of the uneasiness of decision making and procedures can be eliminated if there's been at least one previous conversation about what do you want. Like some people,
I tell you something. One of the most, I'm gonna say one of the most important things, but one thing that I have found over the years that makes families' life easier is when they come in before the person is deceased and fill out the birth certificate of marriages, the death certificate paperwork, a brief plan on what they want for the funeral, and they get a brief understanding of what it's going to cost.
yes,
Because when they come in, your appointment time goes from an hour and a half to 2 hours, or an hour to 2 hours, down to half an hour.
mm-hmm.
Because all the hard questions have been asked, the brain teasers.
Yep.
We call them brain teasers because
Yep.
they're brain teasers.
Mm-hmm.
We have an understanding of what's going to happen for the funeral, and they have an understanding of how much it's all going to cost. And just going on from there, I see your mouth opening, you're going to say something, you're going to spit it out at me, is that it is so much easier before the funeral to go over these questions and to think about them than to think about it when you're grieving.
Yeah.
Because when you're grieving, the last thing you want to be thinking about is what mum's dad did for a job.
Yep. That's
Or how many kids, mum had 10 kids and trying to figure out all your brothers and sisters' ages.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yep.
Was the clarity of,
Yep.
of thought and the calmness of emotion is under control before the sandstorm inside your head starts. And
the amount of times I've had conversations with families that have gone, so am I actioning this plan? And they go, oh yeah. And you go, perfect.
yeah,
Let me get to it.
yep, yeah.
It's like, it's that easy? Like, yeah, it's that easy. Like,
It's-
you made these plans before mum passed away. Let's do it. Oh my gosh. The amount of times I have families say, oh my gosh, that was so easy. That was so much easier than what we had thought it would be. It's like, yeah, because you thought about it, you planned for it, and now we're going to execute it.
Yeah, not doing it makes one of the biggest decisions, burial, cremation, even tricky. That I don't know. Do you know? Do you know?
What did mum want?
It's
Oh,
like everyone looks at each other and
ooh,
say, "Did she tell you? Did she tell you?"
Hold on, let me go and ask auntie. Did she tell you? No. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the people who if you in a situation where it's totally unpredicted and you didn't see it coming, understandable. But if you're in a situation where you've been advised that this is coming, it's obvious.
And I guess the other thing is as well is that, like, if someone doesn't pass away in the hospital and they pass away at home, and you're wanting your loved one back home, or you're wanting to go to the marae, or you're wanting to have viewing and things like that, and you want your loved one embalmed, nothing can be done until we can speak to the doctor. Now, if we don't have any pre-warning, and that happens on the weekend, and the doctor decides they don't want to answer their phone,
sort
it's a stalemate.
yeah.
You go into a stalemate. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, sorry, mate, can't really, do anything until I talk to Dr. So-and-so. Oh. So, there's although it seems like a lot of preparation, it's not. It's just ironing out a few simple things before the time comes, which is going to make your life easier, so much easier.
In doing some of these conversations, another point comes up quite often that we end up being the deliverer of this news, and it stumps people when they come in and they announce to you that I'm the enduring power of attorney for my mom. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. You're here ahead making plans. That's great. Are you listed as the executor? Because the enduring power of attorney ceases at the time that someone passes. You no longer are looking after somebody's well-being and property. So now it's the person that's anointed the executor. Are you that person? Most people don't know that. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
So
that's a good point. It's a very good point.
knowing who the actual executor is, and sometimes it defaults back to a lawyer.
Yeah.
But that all works itself out, and it's
Absolutely.
quite easy. But it does catch people out when they feel like they're the ones.
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
you,
absolutely.
I
And
am the person here to make the choices.
And it can get quite sticky sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, and sticky situations are never fun for any family when you're grieving. And, we want to be
No one
making
likes-
sure that everything's fluid, everything works, everything's just sort of falls into line. And I think, you know, we've all, as funeral directors, we've all had to deal with sticky situations over the years. You know, it all comes down to preparation.
Yeah.
It all comes back to preparation. I mean, those are 3 really important points of preparation. You know, death certificate, knowing what's involved with the death certificate.
Absolutely.
Preparing, writing, seeing a funeral director and making a plan. And knowing who the executor is.
Yeah.
3 really important points when it comes to...
Knowing who your chiefs are.
Yeah. Who's your chiefs and who's the Indians.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And then, making sure that those are the right people. And you know, in one of the things that I did say again in this presentation the other day was that having an executor is very important, and knowing that is the person that's going to follow out your wishes. That doesn't always mean that it's your son or your daughter.
No.
Or the oldest. You know, it's it might be best to have
someone who's not
your brother do it, or your a person who you know, like a JP or your lawyer. To be the ones, just because of just where people are located, being all over the planet, past relationships, just the convoluted nature of your estate.
Absolutely.
Any matter
Could be
of
any
things.
reason. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was interesting, Dean. We've got 3 really important points to take away. So just going to repeat those for the listeners again. 1, knowing the time frame on a death certificate and how it works. 2, preparation, making sure that you're prepared, getting the right information and putting a plan in place. And 3, knowing the process of wills and who the executor is, who's in charge, who's your chief, how's it all going to work.
Yep.
Those are 3 really important points, 3 really good takeaways.
Really good information there.
All right. Hey, great to be back with you. Great podcast. Great to be able to give the listeners some education and go from there. Hoping to have some special guests coming up shortly, and I'm just working on a really special guest in the background today. So looking forward to bringing that to you. That was Celebrate Good Lives.
I do want to say, if any of you have been watching these on YouTube, these orchids, they're real. And they're the original ones from the original show.
I think we're going to retire them today. I think the next podcast will come up with some new flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done well.
They have done very well.
All right. Hey, that was Celebrate Good Lives. This is Bradley Shaw. That is Dean Weber. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, man.
us.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with you soon. All the best.